Welcome to our first ever avatar-based edition of the Legal Tech Week Roundtable. Thanks to Nikki Black for suggesting this, and to EDRM for allowing us to use their luxurious campus here, as well as to the Monroe County Bar Association for making us part of their solo and small firm conference that's going on. You're going to just see the back of my head for most of this program because I can't figure out another way to do it. But you will be able to see all the panelists and hopefully be able to hear them as well. So, whoops, one of our panelists just disappeared. People tend to jump around here. There it is. Molly, you're at the wrong table. So let's see. Let's introduce ourselves. Joe Patrice, you want to say hello there, Joe Avatar?
I would love to. Hopefully people can hear me. I'm Joe Patrice from Above the Law. I'm doing two simultaneous virtual avatar-based worlds this week right now. So I'm comparing and contrasting them. And the other one's 8-bit, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, no, good to be here.
All right. Yeah, my perspective is a little strange here because I can't zoom in on faces as we're talking. But Nikki, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Nikki Black. I am the legal.
I'm just like putting you behind my head.
That's okay. I'm the legal technology evangelist with My Case Law Practice Management Software. I am a legal technology journalist. I write for ABA Journal, Above the Law, Daily Record, and the My Case blog, and I am the one that convinced the Monroe County Bar to do this. So this is all my fault. I hope that, and I convinced you guys to do this, so hopefully this goes smoothly today. And I am happy to be here.
Yeah, and if people haven't noticed as you're watching this, there are little voice bubbles over whoever it is who's speaking, because the faces don't necessarily turn toward the camera or turn toward me as they're speaking, but there are these little voice bubbles that you'll see. So Victoria, how about you?
Hey guys, my name is Victoria Hutchins. I'm a reporter for Legal Tech News, where I report about the legal tech space, cybersecurity, how lawyers in-house and outside counsel are using tech.
And great. And Steve Embry there across the table from me.
Hi, Steve Embry here. I write the blog Tech Law Crossroads about legal innovation, legal technology. I'm also the vice chair of the ABA Law Practice Division. And prior to that, I practiced law for many years.
All right. And next to Steve is Molly McDonough.
Hi, I'm Molly McDonough. I am a media strategist and consultant based in the Chicago area. I am also a blogger. I focus on access to justice and legal technology, and produce the show for Legal Talk Network called Legal Talk Today.
And the guy who lost musical chairs in this virtual world, Zach Warren back there.
I think this means I get kicked out of the Monroe County Bar Association since I lost musical chairs here. But hey there, everybody. I'm Zach Warren. I'm the editor-in-chief of Legal Tech News with ALM. You'll also see me in other ALM publications like The American Lawyer, Corporate Counsel, etc.
All right. Does anybody want to dance or clap their hands or anything?
Good.
Victoria has the moves. And all right, so this is our table. We might take you for a little tour of the campus afterward. It's a little hard to get the size of it from where we are here, but it's actually a pretty cool thing. There's a whole exhibit hall going on where people can go wander around the exhibit hall, and there are actual people manning the booths in the exhibit hall where we can go in and engage with them. And maybe if we have some time toward the end of the discussion, we can all take a little tour or even a boat ride. Who wants to kick us off with story, or anybody else want to just comment on this platform? Any other thoughts on it, or Nikki, I know you've been a big fan of this. What do you think of it?
Well, I'm just super excited because it you're not in a Zoom zombie land, you know, it's interactive. I'm actually a little bit tired the way I get at conferences, because you do feel like you're actually somewhere talking to people rather than staring at a screen. So it's a different kind of fatigue. But besides that, it's a lot of fun. You feel like you've actually gone somewhere and done something, interacted with people, laugh a little bit. So, you know, it's not as good as being somewhere in person, but it's just a really wonderful break from the norm that we're all existing in right now, I think. So I was super excited that I was able to convince the bar to do this. I was excited at the number of people that actually took the leap and decided to actually attend the conference. And I was really glad you guys agreed to do this today, because I think it's interesting to just try to experiment with new modalities and new formats. And why not? We're all writing about legal tech. We may as enjoy tech, right?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, any other thoughts on this platform? Anybody else want to comment?
Yeah, this is, I think it's really a pretty cool platform too. And, you know, the thing I like about it is that, you know, you can wander around the campus and sort of bump into people and have a conversation, just like you might if you were really present for a live conference. You know, this is the second one of these I've done, and you know, I really like them too. The only thing I wish they could do is make our faces look a little more realistic as to what we actually look like, but maybe that's a plus in my case, so I don't know.
I don't know, it's a pretty good likeness, Steve. I recognize you right away.
Well, I'm the only guy without any hair, so it's pretty easy, Bob.
One thing I like too with this, I mean, we've talked so much about Zoom fatigue and how it just gets a little bit tiring, just one Zoom after another, and that being a major detriment to a lot of conferences where you normally do have something to shake it up. Just being in a different physical space for different things that's happening during the event, I think really does help focus you a little bit more. Like right now we're in a conference room, we could head to the soccer field, we could either head to a different conference hall or a different room, and just changing what's on your computer screen a little bit, I think really does help get what you're actually trying to learn here through a little bit better.
Yeah, I have to say,
you know,
yeah, go ahead.
You know, it's kind of interesting. I was just sitting here thinking, I mean, there are 4 of us or 5 of us sitting here at this round table, and the platform will allow you to change the view. So if we were actually having a meeting to discuss something and Joe was talking, I could move my mouse, use my mouse to focus on, to look at Joe as he was talking, even though his avatar, I don't think the lips move or anything, but you could, you know, this could make it for an interesting way to have small group meetings and sort of real discussions.
Yeah, one of the
The other thing,
go ahead, Nikki.
the other thing I just wanted to mention was when I've sat in the main auditorium and listened to people speak. Yesterday, Heidi Alexander spoke and Jared Correa. Today, Conrad Sam's going to speak, and I'm going to speak as well. But when you're in the audience listening to people speak, it feels like you are, rather than that Zoom thing of staring at a screen, you truly feel like you're in an auditorium, looking up at someone talking at a podium with the slides behind them. So it truly feels, especially in that context, like you're at a conference listening to a presenter. And so in that respect, it's a great way to receive information because it feels more natural than the Zoom presentations.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about this, I'm sorry, who's going to, was that Victoria?
Yeah, yeah, it's me. I'm Victoria. Yeah, I was kind of wondering, like, just this is my first time kind of like using these types of avatars for a convention. And for me, it feels like I'm a little bit more, maybe because it's so new to me, I'm paying attention to more of like the signs and the vendor things that I see. And I kind of wonder, like, would that help vendors when people still aren't comfortable going back to in-person conferences? Do they get a little bit more traction with these types of events, where it's a little bit hard to just ignore that it's a sign on your screen? Of course, it's still an image on my screen, but it's kind of like I'm in a world and I'm kind of walking around, and it maybe will force me to like interact with vendors and talk to them and not just kind of like ignore that they're listed on the side of like a website. So I kind of wonder, like, do vendors see like more traction with these types of events?
Yeah, and we're exhibiting at this, and I went and talked to the someone from my case that was in the booth, and he said that it's was a great experience. Like, someone just walked into the booth and he had a long conversation with him. And the way that this conference is set up is you have to go in order to be entered in the raffles, you have to go to some of the booths, just like it is in a normal conference. So people actually have to visit the booths if they want to win a raffle ticket. And when they walk into the booths, there's usually a person manning the booth, and they have natural conversations. And so from a vendor's perspective, it is more engaging, and it is better. It's, in some ways, it might be better than in person, because it's you don't feel quite as intrusive when you walk into the booth, or they don't feel like they're dragging you in. Everyone's just, there is a bit of a wall when you're an avatar. Do you know what I mean? You're not looking at someone in the eyes. So sometimes it's easier to have conversations and not feel like you're sucked into a conversation you don't want to be in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the other part about that is you can see who else is at the booth, just like you can in a real exhibit hall. So you might walk up and Joe would be standing there, or Bob, or whoever that I haven't seen in a while, and I could say, hey, good to see you again, so to speak. And you could have a kind of a conversation that way, which is really, it is kind of like really being at an exhibit hall. And of course, if you go to a booth and there's nobody there but the vendor, and you don't really want to stop, you can just keep on going.
Yeah, and there's there's some chat going on here, and unfortunately the panelists can't see the chat this week because they are not in the Zoom webinar. But Kaylee Walstead just made the point in the chat here that, yeah, the vendors do get more attention. People are not trying to avoid eye contact, and it levels the playing field, and people are just happy to interact with one another virtually. I think that's really true. One of the other, one of the fascinating things about this whole experience is that, again, it's a little hard to see as we're kind of sitting here at the table because we're all in these sort of rigid positions, but as you move around the campus and you see people having you can see a group of people up ahead of you, and as you walk up closer to them, their voices get louder and louder as if you're actually walking up toward them. And then once you get to them, you can engage in conversation with them, and they see that you've arrived, and you can walk away. I mean, this may be typical stuff for people who are used to using like Second Life or something, but I don't use Second Life. I haven't really experienced that much of it. So I think for a conference, it's just it's more engaging somehow than a lot of the other kinds of things we've gone through.
And there are private, there's spots where there's a table with a blue circle around it. And when you go into that, all the ambient noise disappears, and you and the person inside there, or people inside that section, can have a private conversation that nobody outside of the circle can hear. So it also gives you the option to step somewhere and have a private discussion too, which is nice.
Yeah.
I'd be interested. I think, Nikki, you attended the wine party last night, maybe, and I'd be interested in your thoughts about that, because so many of these Zoom happy hours, I got to tell you, I find them pretty dreadful. But the one social event I went to at the other conference that used this platform was a whole lot more fun. I don't know if you find it that way or not, but I know I do.
Well, I helped. That was one of the things that I did for the conference, was I reached out to Finger Lakes winery, and then we pre-recorded the video. So I would ask questions periodically throughout the video and then turn off my Zoom camera while she presented. And so once we had that video recorded, we gave it to the bar and they uploaded it to YouTube. And then what happened was they played the video, and people ordered wine ahead of time, so they had their wines with them in their kitchens, and everyone went and stood on the beach, and then we played the video, and you did the wine tasting in your kitchen while the video played. The only downfall with the format here is if you accidentally walk outside of the beach area, there's a big blue line around it, and you walk back in, the video starts over. And I kept losing control of my avatar, and I accidentally walked up on the stage at one point. I was having issues yesterday. And so I eventually just gave up because I kept accidentally walking jumping off the stage, out of the area, and then I'd come back in and it would start over. So I decided to just watch the video today with my husband when he was around, and do our own separate wine tasting, since I actually have the video on my computer since she sent it to me. But that was technical difficulties on my part.
Nikki, it is a symptom of having too much wine tasting when you fall off the stage and wonder.
Good point. That may have been what was happening. That might have been complete user error.
The social one I went to at the eDiscovery Day event, which used this, it was really very much like a cocktail party. They had people at various tables or people standing around, and you could walk up to a group of people and chat for a little bit, then walk up to another group of people and chat for a little bit. And, it was a whole lot more fun than I thought, than staring at dozens of people's, watching dozens of people try to drink and look happy on a Zoom virtual happy hour.
Well, so should we talk about some of the week's stories? Since that's what we're here for. I don't know, anybody wants to kick us off? Zach, you've had such a great series going on ALSPs, and you've had another one up this week. You want to, especially because you look tired because you're just standing there. Do you want to kick it off? And,
Yeah, I'll think about that. Yeah, so a little background. Law.com, Legal Tech News, the American Lawyer, has had a series called Breaking Traditions since last August, which is trying to dive a little bit deeper into the alternative legal service provider, ALSP market, and just kind of talk about where they fit in this whole ecosystem of law firms, outside providers, in-house counsel, et cetera. So a lot of what we've talked about, or when we've talked to particularly in-house clients, they've said, yeah, we're interested in these ALSPs because we think that they're innovative. We're just trying to get a feel of where they fit in ourselves and progressively onboard them a little bit more. One story that I thought was interesting, though, that Frank Reddy did this week is kind of got the law firm perspective pushing back on that a little bit and saying, well, it's kind of a perception problem here because everybody views all of these ALSPs and everything they're doing with technology as inherently more innovative than law firms. But when you do that, you're kind of discounting a lot of the innovation that law firms are trying to do themselves. Of course, there's consultancies, and a lot of law firms have their own ALSPs, but even internally within the law firm themselves, a lot of them are arguing the billable hour model and what our normal lawyers are doing isn't incompatible with innovation. It's just you have to look at innovation on its own and say, okay, we're trying something in a different way here to service you better. That's the ultimate question. Are we servicing you better? Not necessarily, are we using all of this latest and greatest technology? So I just thought the question of that perception, can law firms be as innovative or even more innovative than ALSPs, and are corporate clients in particular really taking that into account, to be interesting, because I think it's going to be a topic of conversation as these ALSPs continue to grow that I think we're going to keep having here in the future.
Yeah, I've read that article too, and that Frank wrote, and in fact, I almost tagged it for when I would mention this, but there was a great quote in there from a lawyer that said, we're always battling this preconceived idea that lawyers are there for pure legal advice. Like, I thought that's what we did. But I understand. I mean, I understand the point that I think that what person was trying to make is we have these other services that we can provide that aren't necessarily provided by lawyers. But it kind of brings into the question is, how cost effective and efficient can law firms be providing that kind of alternative legal service provider type of work. But anyway, yes, it's a very interesting series, and I thought that was a pretty cool article Frank did.
well, you certainly have to be a firm of a particular size before you even are going to have the financial means to kind of create your own captive ALSP. I think it's certainly not an option that's available to every law firm out there, only the largest firms. And even then, there's probably limits on the extent to which they can, build the kind of an ALSP that's going to be able to handle projects of various, scale to projects of various sizes, from maybe a smaller review product to a huge, remediation project or something like that. So there are real limits, I think, on law firms' ability to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's interesting looking at it from the other end of the spectrum too, particularly if we all think in the near future law firms are going to be competing with large consultancies, the big four, what have you, then it's a good thing for law firms to be viewed as more than just legal advice, to be viewed as that partner you can come to with any problem, even if it's like from finance or compliance, what have you. So I think from that standpoint, a lot of law firms are saying, yeah, I mean, come to us for these sorts of problems. We'll be innovative. We'll try things in a new way too, so that if they are competing for that work, they're not going to be left in the lurch.
Yeah.
Of course, part of the problem with law firms as opposed to accounting firms, though, is that the people providing that kind of non-legal services, at least historically, have never been able to be partners in the equity partners, or even, I guess they can be non-equity partners because they're not really partners, but they haven't been able to do that. So the attraction to talent ability is a little different than, say, accounting firms, where, you know, those kinds of people providing those kinds of services can indeed be a partner in the firm and can indeed have a virtually unlimited financial ceiling. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. The other problem with the law firms is, their overhead has historically not enabled them to do a lot of that kind of stuff at the kind of price to be competitive with the alternative legal service providers. Although now that so many lawyers are working remote and firms are cutting real estate, that could be not so much a barrier anymore.
Yeah. Molly, you've been kind of quiet. I don't know if your avatar is tired today. What do you got today?
Sorry, I keep trying to look around and accidentally move. So I'm trying to stay put and not get too curious. So and I accidentally clapped while I was trying to agree with Zach on one of his points, and forgot that it actually makes a clapping sound, which we're not used to in these platforms.
So we're not just going to start dancing right now? Is that kind of out of the
we
question?
Should totally start dancing.
Sorry, I don't know.
So speaking of social platforms, a lot of people are aware of the massive Facebook data breach, and I've just been fascinated that Facebook is not intending to let the users know or come up with any kind of notification or remediation plan for anybody whose data was put at risk for disclosure. And I thought I'd bring it up. I thought it was interesting. Their position seems to be that the data is more public than not, and so the breach. I don't even know, the rationale doesn't make sense to me. So I'm curious what other people think, and it just seems to fly in the face of all the best practices for data breaches now. Is anybody else struck by that?
Well, Zuckerberg's always, he's infamous for way back in the day, saying they're suckers for giving us all this information. I think he's always just kind of felt like you're taking a risk by giving us the information, and it's your own fault if something happens. I just think that any business or corporation, the top, the tone is set at the top and it just filters down. And so I agree with you. They're handling it really strangely, but it completely doesn't surprise me given everything that I know about Zuckerberg and his philosophy on that stuff,
The other thing for me is that there hasn't been, there's been no, usually with a company like this, especially like a Facebook level breach, there's some kind of plan revealed about, improving security or something. And I don't see any of that. And I just think that it's a major issue for the brand.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think Zuckerberg is just really pissed off that somebody stole data that he could have sold.
Well,
Well, it's weird that we're all worried about Zuckerberg because I mean, personally, after I got my second vaccine shot and got the Bill Gates implant, it's like now I'm much more concerned about them. And it's weird. I started getting this uncontrollable urge to use Internet Explorer again. I don't know.
That's weird. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's a little suspect.
So
My
the only
5G's
thing
never
that,
been better though.
right. So the only thing that Facebook went down for about 15 minutes yesterday, and there also again very little explanation for that other than a configuration change. And the only thing, I mean, that would be typical for a some type of security update, that's the only other reason I can say that, or I can point to that would happen for such a long period of time for Facebook. I think it took down their internal systems plus the external Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram all over the country.
All right. Who wants to go next? Victoria, you want to talk about your story?
Yeah, my story was kind of tech. It's based off of Notre Dame. There was some outrage because law school students that they told prospective law school students that passed, and they told them that if you submit your, deposit for the law school tuition by a certain date, then okay, they'll hold your spot. But they had more deposits than they were expecting. So they closed, I think it was, they disconnected, they ended their, they ended their deposits. Well, how long they would, sorry. They said some people that were accepted, they weren't allowing them to pay for it and put down their deposit because they said they had too many applicants. So you had people that were given the okay and said, hey, you were accepted into Notre Dame. They were put on a wait list. And they said it was really, they kind of said like, oh, we weren't expecting so many people to apply to Notre Dame. And a lot of people were upset because they went through the struggle of taking the LSAT, passing the LSAT, and then submitting their deposit before the deadline. But Notre Dame said, oh, no, actually, we cut it earlier. So they're dealing with that backlash. And it was kind of interesting because with their people that were actually got accepted into Notre Dame, they had the highest number of people of color. And it turns out that the people of color that were that they were trying to pay their deposit last, they were coming close to the deadline. So I kind of wonder, like, it's interesting to see how law schools, especially if they're not sure of like, are kids gonna be applying to their law school, kids and grown adults, if they're going to apply for the law school, and just kind of wondering like, this wasn't the best tactic to take. And just kind of wonder if other law schools are doing the same when they're just thinking like, oh, we had too many people than we expected because of COVID-19, 2020 kind of messed up our calculations of the people that we think would be interested in the law school. So I kind of thought it was interesting. It kind of loosely has a tech base because I'm assuming people were paying their deposits and everything online, and just kind of had the rug pulled out under you when you get a email from Notre Dame saying, "Hey, we actually ended our deadline."
Steve, what did you have this week?
Oh,
Jumping between devices here.
There was a really interesting report that came out. And just a little background, the New York court system established a little less than a year ago a commission to reimagine the future of New York's courts. And one of the working groups that was established as part of that was the Future Trials Working Group. And they came out with a report, and it was a really interesting report. They focused on four things. How to best evaluate emerging technology for court systems and lawyers that are litigating in the courts. Second, what areas of trial practice might be transformed by technology, and in that they had a discussion of what future issues there may be that courts will have to grapple with. What's the impact of the best evidence rule, for example, on some of this technology? And they even included a discussion of technology that might be better able to assess whether somebody is lying or not, which, may be a little far-fetched, but it struck me as really interesting that this committee was looking at it as an issue, and someday it may very well be an issue. They had a lengthy discussion of how jury trials might be conducted remotely, and they looked at the issues. They had some law in there. They cited some cases about constitutional issues, and then they did a little survey of states that have done jury trials remotely and what the results were. And then the last thing they do is they focused on training for judges. And I thought this was interesting too. They cited the ethical obligations of lawyers with respect to technology. And I know we talked about that a week or so ago. But then they went on to say, the judges have some duties to keep up with it as well. And so it was just a well done report and got to a lot of issues that make good reading for anybody that's interested in litigation and the court system, and even for litigators, because it brought out some issues that if you were involved in a remote proceeding in front of the court, particularly at the jury trial, some of the things you might want to think about. They had some recommendations in there for examination, such as everybody should have the same background, virtual background, so that one person's background doesn't look better than the others. And so you certainly kind of quarrel with some of their conclusions, maybe, or some of their thoughts. Really, but fewer conclusions than just raising issues. And it was a thought-provoking piece. The only thing that struck me a little bit about it was, sadly, they had to keep referencing, if we're going to study this, or we're going to look at this, or we're going to analyze this, we got to get some money to do it. And that, of course, is always kind of an issue for court systems. But I would strongly recommend people taking a look at it and just reading through. And it's maybe 50 pages, if that. It's got an executive summary and got a lot of reference materials. And I was impressed by it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is we've talked a ton about, is this going to be sustainable post-pandemic? And while the jury's still out on that, it sure seems like the intention from a lot of places is to at least put some protocols in place to make it sustainable, money notwithstanding and all of that. So by standardizing some of these things, I think that goes a long way to at least presenting it as an option moving forward, and what that means and how they allocate what would be remote and what wouldn't. There's a lot of work to do there, but it's a good stepping stone, I think, at least to start.
Yeah, they made an interesting point that, they said before the pandemic, courts were saying, well, maybe we can go from telephonic hearings to video hearings, and we'll slowly progress from that to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. And now all of a sudden, boom, all the steps are here and present and need to be dealt with, and which is true. I mean, it took a pandemic, I guess, to focus courts on this. And sadly, though, I'm not sure other states are quite as focused on this as New York is. But yeah, it was good, very well done. I congratulate the working group that did this.
The New York has done, there have been several working groups. I'm actually on another one of them for some reason, even though I'm not in New York, but there's one on technology in the courts that I think their report is about to come out. And there was another one we talked about earlier, and I'm trying to remember what that one was about, but it's been a really forward-looking process, I think, on the part of the New York courts to go through this discussions of these different issues and really try and think through how they should be, what kinds of changes they should be making, so it's good to see courts doing that. And you also touched on an issue that's one that I think is really important, which is the technology competence of judges. And I think I actually wrote an above the law column about this once, but it makes absolute sense that if lawyers are going to be subject to a duty to be competent in technology, by the same token, judges should be competent in technology, and maybe it's even more important in some cases that the judges have that degree of competence, and yet a number of them don't, and so I'm glad to see they touched on that. I haven't read the report yet, but I look forward to reading it.
I was just going to add in, there was another annual report that's out on from the National Center for State Courts, which has some information about all the work it did over the last year, which was pretty significant in evaluating what has been done so far, and really doing a good job documenting best practices and tests all over the country.
Nikki, what about you? Since you seem to be seated for a moment here, what was your story this week?
Well, so I wrote on my for my Daily Record article about guess Bob. What did I write about? What
Ethics.
do I ever write about? Ethics, right? It was it was a New Jersey ethics opinion about using the reply all function in email. And the inquiring attorney wanted to know that if he sent an email to opposing counsel and CC'd his client, if opposing counsel then replied all, was the opposing counsel violating impermissibly communicating with his client without his permission? And the court, not the court, but the committee, I absolutely agreed with the way they approached it and their conclusion. Their conclusion was, nicely stated, don't be an idiot. Let's look at the offline analogy. If you do a phone call, a conference call, and your client's there, and the client is part of the phone call, you are not somehow, you can't do this gotcha with opposing counsel where they are impermissibly communicating with your client. So, and the same can be said with email. But a letter is different, right? If you send a letter and CC the client, when opposing counsel responds, they only respond to you, they don't CC the client. So they analogized an email more like a phone call. And what they said, I liked their language, was that lawyers, and I also just appreciate them looking at these offline analogies, because that's how you reach the proper conclusion in these situations. Online is not somehow inherently strange and different, and shouldn't be treated differently than offline analogies that fit. And so they said, when lawyers initiate a group email and find it convenient to include their client, they should not then be able to claim an ethics violation if opposing counsel uses reply all. Reply all in a group email should not be an ethics trap for the unwary or a gotcha moment for opposing counsel. The committee finds that lawyers who include their clients' group emails are deemed to have impliedly consented to opposing counsel replying to the entire group, including the lawyer's client. So I just thought it was interesting, and I appreciated the way that the court approached the problem, because I do believe that when you analogize the online to the offline, like I said, rather than treating the online as some unique species that has to be addressed differently, you're going to reach a proper conclusion, and a conclusion that's going to withstand the test of time as new technologies come along. So I just thought it was interesting, and I can't share a link to it because I'm not in Zoom, but I think that we sent out an email ahead of time that had links to the articles. I thought it was interesting. I love all these ethics decisions that sort of move technology forward a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, there certainly have been. I mean, you can imagine some situations where a reply all on an email could potentially raise some ethics issues. But it sounds like the right outcome in that case. Somebody is asking in the comments whether we can post that NCSC reference that Molly was talking about. And I know Molly's not on the comments, but Jim McMillan is. And perhaps Jim, if you're out there, and perhaps have a reference to that, if you could post that. Well, I see that you're out there because you're commenting also. But otherwise, we could put this up afterward in the show notes and make it available. Joe, did you have anything this week?
I did not. I got to you. I got to the group spreadsheet way too late, and everybody had one, if not two stories. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to sit here and be a quippy guy, which I tried to do. We'll see. I'm also like moving around my head, like give some visual movement so that people, like the video looks like we're real people instead of just kind of sitting there.
Yeah, all right. Well, can you like dance for us or something anyway? Nope. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what that was.
Okay. Yeah, we will put these out in the in the newsletter afterwards. All the links of stories we're talking about. So stay tuned for that. You'll get an email afterward with all the links. Let's see. Did I forget anybody here in terms of stories? I don't think I did. Other than my
Should we walk around?
Yourself.
well, perhaps myself. I was going to just quickly mention. I mean, the story I did this week. I just thought it was interesting. Casey Flaherty left his job at Baker McKenzie to join this legal tech collective, LexFusion. We talked about this on this show back when it launched. Back in October, I think it was. And this is this interesting sort of an approach to selling tech to legal companies, in which they've essentially created a collective of legal tech companies. And LexFusion is a company that's representing this collective as their so-called go-to-market representative, taking a very sort of low-key consultative approach to technology, to kind of going in and meeting with law firm partners or general counsel and having conversations about what they might need for technology, what they're trying to accomplish, where they're trying to get to, and how they can kind of put together solutions that address whatever it is that particular company needs. This LexFusion is the only sort of collective, go-to-market collective like this that I'm aware of in the legal market. There may be others, but I'm not aware of it. It was already kind of notable, I think. The two founders of it, Joe Borstein and Paul Stroka, were already people who were pretty well known in the legal world, and Casey Flaherty is another. I mean, he comes off of being director of legal project management at Baker McKenzie, and he's perhaps best known as the developer of the ProCertus technology training, which is the kind of tech competence training that's now in use at a number of corporate legal departments are using it to assess the technological competence of their outside firms, and a number of law schools are now using it as part of their training. Casey told me this week that it's something like 100 law schools that are now using that. So, just a notable development in the legal tech world. But I think this LexFusion model is something that's interesting and worth following.
Bob, I thought it was interesting. David Cambria, Jay and Casey Flaherty all went to the Baker McKenzie firm, and it was kind of a big deal. And now I think all three of them are gone. I don't know what there is to make of that, because best I can tell, nobody's acting like there's anything bad about that. Although, as you may recall, I commented at the time that Casey went there. I actually quoted Winston Churchill, who was asked one time, Sir Winston, are you prepared to meet your maker? And he said, yes, but I'm not sure he's prepared to meet the likes of me.
Right. I do remember that. I even quoted you in my podcast when I interviewed Casey and Jay, I think, on my show.
So when I saw that he was leaving, I sort of remembered that and wondered about it.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. I mean, should we for people who are watching, maybe try and take them on a little tour, go for a little walk or something? I know a lot of us have to get off right at the time.
Sounds great.
But how should we do that?
There's-
Nikki, you want to lead us and I'll follow you?
Yeah. I wanted to mention there's a funny tweet where someone said they logged in late and they thought they were watching you play Sims. Why don't we go to the boat? I feel like that is
Yeah,
like
not
the
the exhibit
beach.
hall. The exhibit hall's kind of cool, but
Oh, let's go to the
okay.
expo hall. Good idea. Let's go to the
Yeah.
expo hall and meet there then.
All right,
Good
how do we
call.
And
go?
All right.
everybody stay tuned for our upcoming Twitch where we just play Warcraft as a team.
Isn't it like right outside the door here, the exhibit hall? Where are we? No, I guess not. No,
Well,
I
you
guess not.
got to click go to and go to it.
All
Right?
right,
Ready,
okay.
everyone?
All right.
Go to expo hall.
Whoops, I'm not there yet. Oh. Last but not least, not working for me.
Or there's Bob. All right. Do we have every? Yes, we do.
Okay.
So the
yeah.
expo hall is up here to the left, the entrance to it, where it says MCBA on the over here. Walk this way. The MyCase booth is over here. I think we should go to the MyCase booth. Let's see. I don't know. I'm not sure if I know where it is. I think it's over here.
I thought it was right here.
Here it is. It's all going to the MyCase booth.
I was in here yesterday looking around.
Oh, I was thinking the Clio.
Are you there?
Hi.
I know.
How are you?
Good. We're all here. This is the Legal Tech Journalists Roundtable, and we're just finished our roundtable. So people that write for like law.com, and James is one of our you're a BDR, right, James?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. James is one of our BDRs, and he's manning our booth. And this is the MyCase booth. We can talk to James, and then over here we can actually play our video. Want me to?
Hello. How's everyone doing?
Good. You're
Let's see.
live
Good
on
on this
Tuesday.
Friday.
And then I won't play the whole video. I'll just show you how it.
Have you ever heard of a coffee shop millionaire? You know, the people you see.
I don't know why it says Monday.com, but okay. Well, that's kind of strange.
YouTube ads, they always get you.
Is that what it is?
I'm pretty
Is
sure.
it YouTube ad? Oh, let's see.
Relaxing at the coffee shop,
Super
and
loud. Let me
working
turn
on their
it down.
laptops all day, but then you see them leave and they
All right,
drive
because
off
they
in a
had to use
$250,000
YouTube
sports
to,
car. You ever
oh,
want to know
skip
how
the
they
ad.
do it?
Where's the
Well,
swag?
There we
if
go.
not, go ahead, skip
There,
this
all right,
video.
so I'm
and
not
I
gonna play the
apologize
whole
for the
thing,
interruption. But
Okay.
if you
And
do
I'm about
want
to
to
sign
know,
us up for a
if you
trial.
can
I
keep
don't know how to
watching,
turn
and
this
in the
off.
next 60 seconds, I'm
There, all
going
right. Okay, so I turned it off. But so this is the booth, and so James, have you had like people stopping by? One thing we were talking about was from the vendor perspective, if the benefits of this type of interaction compared to just Zoom.
Yeah, most definitely. It feels more organic. It's cool to visually see it comparative to some of the other booths we were doing earlier this year. I really do enjoy them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we just thought we were going to go to the expo hall, and then now we may go for a boat ride. But so I didn't mean to surprise you. I didn't tell you were coming. So
Yeah, no, I've only been I've been kind of pulling shifts with Emma, so it's been a little lonely over here. So I'm glad you guys could come and join.
Awesome. All right. So did you guys want to look at another booth, or do you want to go for a boat ride? What should we do?
We can do a quick boat
Your
ride.
call, Bob.
Let's do a quick boat
All right.
ride. I got to go in 5 minutes, so
Let's go to the beach then. Thank you so
beach.
much, James.
Yeah,
good to
enjoy
see
the
you.
beach.
All right.
There's the
I don't know if we
boat.
can all fit in the boat. The boat's right here. Who wants to drive it? Do you know how to drive it? We can only fit 4 of us in it, so I'll stay over here if you want to go.
whoops. Who's coming?
Somebody get on that boat with them. There you go, one.
Whoops.
All right, so Skip first got his Gilligan.
Sometimes it's hard to get in the boat and you have to back up
Sorry.
in order to see the seat
Gotta
to
go.
sit. Okay.
I think Victoria went for a swim.
Whoops. There we are.
Oh, wreck.
And then I'm going to go get the beach ball. I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to kick it over here.
All right.
I'm
was our boat
absolutely going to try to climb that lighthouse right
yeah.
now.
Do that. All right. We actually had a couple of questions here. Do we have any questions? Okay. James. All right. James, I'll check on the link that Molly has. We'll put that out in an email after the show.
All right.
Not sure. I think we need to wrap up here.
Okay, why don't we all go to the entrance and say goodbye? Go to
we
the.
Lost Joe. Joe's going up the lighthouse.
Should we just go to the welcome area and say goodbye?
All right, that sounds good.
So I'll go to the welcome area.
Okay.
Circle and in one place. Whoops.
All right. Everybody's happy. All right, so that was it. Our first ever virtual avatar Legal Tech Week, Journalist Roundtable, and maybe our last ever as well. But it was fun, and thanks again to EDRM for letting us do that. And I hope everybody got a chance to see a little bit of what this is like. And it's kind of fun, but somebody's asking whether the motion seems kind of choppy. Somebody in the comments. It's hard. I'm broadcasting, via a Zoom screen share, so it certainly looks smooth when you're in the environment, and it may be that it's losing something in the broadcast via Zoom, but good for us. So, all right, thanks everybody, and we'll be back again next week with another more normal edition of the Legal Tech Week Roundtable. Thanks to all for participating.
Have a nice Friday, everybody.
Thanks for humoring me, you guys. Have a great weekend.
I'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
All right. That lighthouse worked. Bye, everybody.